The Simpsons is a show that's had 30 seasons, over 600 episodes, 826 guest stars, and a feature film. Few shows have had the cultural impact that The Simpsons had, and no other scripted series has run for as long. That's why today we're taking a hard look at the early series to figure out just how broke The Simpsons are. And I guess consider this your spoiler warning for arguably the most iconic piece of television of all time. But The Simpsons is a big show, and even if I'm not going to be counting every season, more on that in a bit, I think it still might be beneficial to bring in some help. So let's head on over to PhantomStrider, the creator of a bunch of great top 10s and top 5 videos. And hopefully he's a fan of the show.
Howdy, 10K Bill. Thanks for having me on the show. I certainly am a fan of The Simpsons. Let's get started. So before we really get into this, let's set a couple of ground rules for ourselves. First off, let's talk about which seasons we're planning on covering. The Simpsons can typically be broken down into a few different eras. The early years, the Golden Age, New Renaissance, Postmodern, and Post-Movie. Let's take a look at the division between the Golden Age and the New Renaissance.
The cutoff between these two ages is a pretty contentious episode, The Principal and the Pauper. This episode is considered by many, including me, to be The Simpsons' jump the shark moment. So we'll be ending the video right before that season, Season 9.
And second, let's talk about The Simpsons' notoriously wonky timeline. The show uses what's called a floating timeline, meaning that despite the episodes taking place in whatever year they originally aired, the characters never age. We'll be kind of ignoring this as best we can, treating each season as a different year, with Season 1 being 1990, Season 2, 1991, and so on, up to Season 8 in 1997.
But because of this floating timeline, things get thrown off when we hear of different years for people being born and things like that. So we'll try to make it make as much sense as possible for when the series would kick off. Homer Simpson was born in 1956, the son of Abraham and Mona Simpson, the former never paying him any attention and the latter running out on them due to a run-in with the law.
Homer would live a pretty depressing childhood before getting to high school and meeting Marge Bouvier, who he would later marry. Upon his graduation from high school, Homer would get a job as a mini-golf employee. If he were working full-time, he would be making $18,720. However, we'll need to adjust this back to 1974, which would be $2,985.84.
But before we go too much further, let's talk about how we're doing our math. So we'll be adjusting whatever Homer's salary would be each year for inflation, doing some quick tax math, and having Homer put away just 5% of that into a bank account with an average of 5% interest, because Homer isn't exactly the best at budgeting or impulse control. Any major expenses will be taken out of his bank account.
Doing this math, we can fast forward ahead to 1980. By this point, Homer would have $1,506.17.
1980 would be a big year for Homer. This is the year that he would get his then-girlfriend, Marge, pregnant. Upon finding out that Marge is pregnant, Homer gets himself a job at the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant.
And speaking of which, if you'd like to see the video we worked on for Mr. Burns' worth, feel free to check it out on my channel, PhantomStrider. But Homer has actually held many jobs throughout the series. In fact, over 188 jobs in the first 400 episodes.
Luckily, Vox put in a lot of the hard work and math for us already. They took 100 of the jobs that Homer's held throughout the series run and averaged their salaries out. So we're using the number that they came up with, $40,510, which is just slightly higher than what he would be making as a nuclear safety inspector. And of course, we'll be adjusting that back to what the equivalent would be for each year.
So that year, Homer and pregnant Marge would get married, and several months later, Marge would give birth to the couple's first child. But in order to try and take into account how much the couple is spending on their children, we'll continue to have Homer put away just 5% of his paycheck, which is a solid amount higher than he was making as a mini-golf attendant. Coming out of that year, Homer would have $2,010.52.
In 1981, we'll have the Simpsons buy one of their two cars. At this point, they'll buy the 1973 Plymouth Valiant. New, one of those could go for an average of $2,376. However, the Simpsons wouldn't be in the market for a new car. Instead, they would undoubtedly go used. While they could possibly get it for cheaper, we'll give it to the Simpsons for half of the price, $1,188. We'll have them put $200 down and make payments on the car for the next 4 years.
The next year, in 1982, the Simpsons family would grow just a little more with the birth of their first daughter, Lisa. The birth of their second child prompts the family to decide to look for a home to move into instead of the apartment they've been living in.
However, during the search, Homer realizes that he does not have the money to afford the down payment on the home that he and Marge want. But this is quickly remedied when Homer's father sells his home and gives Homer $15,000 for a down payment.
Mirror wrote an article a few years ago where they ran the numbers on how much the homes of a bunch of different popular television homes are worth. According to their numbers, the Simpsons home would be worth £151,500, which is $192,821.63. However, this was back in 2016. We'll adjust that back to 1982 housing markets, which would bring the cost down to $78,690.50.
However, the US housing market was at a point where mortgage rates were at some of the highest they've ever been in US history. In parts of the country, they were reaching as high as 18%. We won't be giving them a mortgage rate for quite that much. Instead, we'll be sticking with a still high 13%. We'll be taking the home payments out of his salary after taxes, and they'll be paying off this house for the next 40 years. Coming out of this year, the Simpsons have $1,836.58.
In 1983, we'll have the Simpsons buy their second car, a 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle station wagon. New, one would go for an average of $3,699. Similar to how we did the other car, we'll cut the price for the car in half, have them put $200 down, and make payments for the next 4 years. Coming out of 1983, the Simpsons have $1,124.37.
From here, we can fast forward to 1987, the year that the Simpsons have finally paid off all their debts. Around this time, Homer would quit his job and get a position as a bowling alley attendant, a job that gives him much greater joy than his job at the nuclear power plant. But this is when Marge finds out that she's pregnant again, and Homer must return to work for Mr. Burns, and Maggie, the Simpsons' final child, would be born in 1988.
However, there is something else that would really start to kick in around this time: Homer's alcoholism. We'll have him start drinking heavily in 1987. Heavy drinkers can spend close to $10,000 in alcohol each year. And as we've seen many times throughout the show, Homer can definitely throw down a couple of drinks. So we'll be taking out the equivalent of $10,000 each year. So coming out in 1987, Homer would have $209.21.
Now we can jump ahead to the beginning of the show, 1990. In the first season, the Simpsons buy a really crappy RV. Like, seriously, this RV has seen better days. Homer still agrees to pay $350 a month. However, the RV is destroyed just a short while later. We'll have Homer just spend the $350 once because of how little the RV would actually be worth, as well as any insurance that Homer might get from the destroyed RV.
The next season, which would be in 1991, the Simpsons are given an Olmec head as thanks from Mr. Burns. While it's pretty hard to get an actual estimate on how much one of these things would be worth, we'll be estimating it around $5,000, though it does end up just sort of staying in the Simpsons' attic, so we'll add that onto their final count. Coming out of 1991, Homer has $385.85.
In 1992, or season 3, Santa's little helper desperately needs a surgery that would cost $750 that the family states that they can't afford. And yeah, they definitely don't have that amount of money saved up. So we'll take that money out of Homer's salary for the year, with the family making some cutbacks to pay for the surgery. Later that same year, Homer is awarded $2,000 from Mr. Burns. Despite Homer wanting to spend the money on a chair, he loans the money to his brother, played by Danny DeVito of course, to invest in an invention he is working on. The invention is actually a huge success, and Herb, Homer's brother, not only pays Homer back the $2,000, but buys Homer the chair that he was hoping to buy with the money. Following 1992, the Simpsons have $2,654.89.
In season 4, or 1993, Homer needs to get a triple bypass. And in typical Homer style, he decides to go with a nice discount surgery. He ends up spending $129.95 on bypass surgery, and surprisingly isn't killed during this. A few episodes later, Lisa racks up a pretty hefty phone bill, $378.53. After that year, the Simpsons have $2,444.92.
Nothing major happens in season 5, so we can jump ahead to season 6, or 1995, when the Simpsons buy an above-ground pool. a similarly sized pool can go for close to $500, which is what we'll estimate this at. The following season, Season 7, has Marge buying an expensive dress that's on sale. She gets the dress for a huge discount, $90.
In Season 8, we see Bart buy an expensive belt. However, this does lead to Homer becoming a professional boxer. We'll assume he used the money he made early from his fights to pay that off. And that's where we'll end our math, right before Season 9's episode, The Principal and the Pauper.
By this point, the Simpsons have $3,425.81 in their bank account, and they still owe $57,041 on their home. We won't be taking their cars into account because of how old they are. And the Simpsons still have their gift from Mr. Burns, which is worth close to $5,000. So the Simpsons, by the end of Season 8, are $48,615.18 in debt. Which sounds much worse than it actually is. Once they fully pay off their home, they'll be much, much better off. But anyways, this has been 10K Bill, and thanks for watching. Strider, thanks for joining me for this. Where can everybody check out your videos?
Thanks for having me. If they'd like, viewers can check out my top lists on my channel PhantomStrider, or the video we did together on how much Mr. Burns is worth.
I'll put a link to your channel down in the description for anyone who wants to check it out. And while you're down there, make sure you comment what you'd like to hear me talk about next. Follow me on Twitter at 10KBill. And of course, make sure you subscribe for all your entertainment-related content.